Tonight on the Wrestling News Day. Hold on a sec. Be right back. There's a polywog on my front lawn.
This is not a test.
This is the Wrestling News Experience. After Dark. Good evening and welcome to Wrestling News Experience After Dark. I'm Stephen Randle. You're here at your WWE Draft Central headquarters, which of course is available through iTunes, Stitcher, on ForumMania.com, through Speaker.com, and on the W2M podcast network, which I understand is getting a website soon. Of course, if you want to get in touch with us, you can follow us on our Facebook group, TWNE After Dark, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dave the Camel. We got anything else? Let's get right to it then. The draft. The draft right now is on Tuesday. The draft that will split us back into the brand extension. I got to tell you, mixed feelings going on out there. Really mixed feelings. A lot of people are like, well, this sucked the first time. Why won't it suck this time? And some of us are going, well, maybe they have a plan. And apparently, they kind of have a plan, except we're only finding out about it today. They have officially posted the rules for the WWE draft tonight. I'm here to tell you what the rules are. Got them right here. Just the official rules for the draft. They don't say how many people are going to be picked on the live show on SmackDown. Although it's a 2-hour show, so it can't be that many. It doesn't say how many are live. It's obviously, I'm going to guess it's an alternating draft, but we'll get into that. The first rule, of course, is that Raw gets the first overall pick, because of course they do. The second rule, since SmackDown Live is a 2-hour show and Raw is 3 hours, no, we're not going to make them even shows, but Raw will get 3 picks for every 2 that SmackDown gets. Because, sure, whatever. Another interesting rule is that tag teams count as a single pick, unless you specifically only want one member of the team. And the reason we're gonna stop right there. We're gonna talk about this rule here. Tag teams are one pick, unless you just want one guy from the tag team. And here's why that's silly. Why would you take just one guy when you could have 2 guys with one pick? Just on a sheer volume alone, it doesn't matter if the second guy is practically worthless. You're getting an extra guy, and in some cases 2. Because let me tell you, who's eligible as a tag team. We got the list right here. Who is eligible as a tag team? We have Breezango, which is Fandango and Tyler Breeze. Enzo and Cass are a tag team. So all that whole talk about could they break up, that's not going to happen. The Club, which is just Gallows and Anderson. The Golden Truth, Shining Stars, which is Epico and Primo. The Social Outcasts as a unit. The Ascension, the Dudley Boys, the New Day, the Usos, and the Vaudevillains. Those are all tag teams. They can only be drafted, or they can be drafted as a unit or individually. And why would you draft them individually if you can't have 2? Especially SmackDown, which is going to get screwed because they get 2 picks to every 3 that Raw gets. It just wouldn't make sense not to pick tag teams. Now, if you're like me, you notice a couple names that were not on there. Apparently, the Lucha Dragons do not count as a tag team, and I guess we could say that they're going to be split up with fairly large certainty. The other notable one is that the Wyatt family is not considered a tag team, which I find interesting for a number of reasons, mostly that the Wyatt family is almost certainly going to face the New Day at Battleground for the tag team champions, and therefore should probably all stick together. Of course, anyone on long-term injury is not on the list, which means that Luke Harper of the Goliath family is not on the list of eligible superstars, as well as a couple other people. But yeah, the tag team rule just doesn't make any sense to me because the one thing they've been talking about since the draft is that tag teams could be split up, and now it turns out that actually tag teams won't be split up because there's no reason to split up any tag teams because you can pick them together. Of course, the original draft, you remember, had weird rules where the NWO got drafted as a unit despite the fact that practically every other tag team got broken up. So anyone who thinks that they've got a plan here, they are just spitballing at this. Like, these rules, if you think about it, don't make any sense. The tag team one especially. I don't want to see the tag teams broke up because I don't think there's any reason to do that. As solutions go, they should have just said tag teams are a single unit because it's the only thing that makes sense. The only thing I can see happening, obviously the Lucha Dragons, who do not count as a tag team, will almost certainly be split up, and that's good because Kalisto needs to be a singles guy and not be inflicted by the curse of Sin Cara. But the New Day can't be broken up. Well, they could be, but you aren't going to draft the tag team champions without drafting all of the tag team champions, I can imagine. The one I can see getting broken up is the Golden Truth, because that would just be the perfect irony that they spent 6 months getting together and now just get broken up. And not that anyone gives a shit about the Golden Truth, but whatever. But yeah, as a rule, it makes sense that they get drafted as a unit. It does not make sense that you now that you also have the option to say, nah, I don't want both of them. Why wouldn't you want a tag team just for volume of bodies? Either way, either you get one person or two person with one pick, or three people if you take the New Day, or the Social Outcast. Why wouldn't you just take them? If it's a competition where you're trying to win, you need as many bodies as you can. So that is going to be a sticking point. I mean, obviously, that screws up a lot of mock drafts, especially mine. And of course, the other thing is that the actual big news, aside from the fact that most tag teams won't be broken up, is that 6 NXT superstars will be drafted as part of this draft. Presumably 3 for each roster. I don't know for sure. Off the top of my head, and this may contain some spoilers for NXT Brooklyn, or Back to Brooklyn, or whatever they're calling it. Off the top of my head, obviously one of them has to be Bayley, because this is just going to be ridiculous if it's not, and she's probably going to be Sasha Banks' mystery partner at Battleground. One of them has to be American Alpha, because otherwise them not winning, or them losing the tag team titles and then losing the rematch makes no sense. Beyond that, I mean, it should be Shinsuke Nakamura because he should be on the main roster, but he is facing Samoa Joe for the NXT title at Brooklyn, and I realize Bayley is too, but nobody expects her to win that one, and I think a lot of people expect Nakamura to win at Brooklyn. I guess it's not that far away. And Finn Balor. Obviously, Finn Balor is one of the picks. So the three guaranteed picks, I will go so far to say guaranteed, is Balor, Bayley, and American Alpha. I mean, if they're not on the main roster after this draft, I will be incredibly shocked. That leaves 3 picks to play with, and I think, obviously, I think Joe and Nakamura deserve it. I have suspicion that one of them may be Austin Aries. Because there's really nothing for him to do in NXT. He's feuding with No Way Jose, which, sure, but I just don't think there's any reason for Austin Aries to be down there. It's one of those ones. Both there's no reason for him to be down there, and he's not actively involved in the NXT title picture. And yeah, I know NXT doesn't really matter. Bayley is facing Asuka at NXT back to Brooklyn for the women's title. But I just think the NXT title one, they're not going to mess with that one, and Joe and Nakamura will not be one of the 6. I don't think it'll be the Revival. I think Ty Dillinger has an outside chance, given that he's, he'll still be enhancement talent on the main roster. He won't be getting anything big, but there's no reason to keep him down in NXT. The gimmick is polished. The crowds love it. He can be one of those just guys who's on the main roster, and I think he'll do quite well. There's no reason to have him. he's not doing anything in NXT, and there's no reason to keep him down there. So I think he's one of the 6. So that's 4 out of me. Baylor, Bailey, Alphas, and Ty Dillinger. Just as an outside the box. And again, this is the thing where we don't know what they're picking on TV, which kind of hurts the process. I think you'll get at least one other lady. It might be Alexa Bliss or Nia Jax would be the top picks for me. I just of those two, I think Alexa Bliss is the more polished, but Nia has the more unique look. I think because at current point in time, according to this eligible roster, there are only 10 active women on the roster, which they are presumably going to split in 2, although I don't agree with that. I think they should keep them all on one show. There are 10 active women on the roster, so you need to, even with Bayley, that's only 11. And one of them is Eva Marie, and one of them is Dana Brooke. And that's who they're counting as, and yeah, that's who they count as their female roster. So you got to add at least more. And Alexa Bliss is probably the one. She really has nothing to do in NXT. And Nia Jax, I would coin flip them. I think Nia Jax should stay down for more seasoning, but God knows that never stopped them before. But I would think Bliss would be the one to move up. She's a better wrestler. She's got a more defined character, and she could instantly slip into any number of spots on Raw or SmackDown. Again, I do hope the women's division stays on one roster, because otherwise this is going to be a mess. You're splitting a roster of 10 people into 2, and you're going to probably have to bring back another championship, because with with single brand pay-per-views, there is no way that the champion can be on both shows. And that makes me think, oh God, I hope they're not bringing back the Diva's Tale after all this. But what are you going to call the other one? You can't just call it the Women's Title 2. Now, one other interesting thing that I noticed from this list of eligible, draftable superstars, which is on WWE.com. First of all, I just noticed this now that Demon Kane is on this list as Demon Kane. I wonder if Corporate Kane is not a possibility. But also, for those interested, Neville is on the list, which means he is... I know he's worked a dark match last week. He should be back from injury probably this week. But who also is on this list is Brock Lesnar. Now, when I did a mock draft, which I did for Goliath.com, if you want to see what my actual mock draft was before we knew what any of the rules were, I didn't draft Brock Lesnar to either brand, because I figure Brock Lesnar's going to show up on whatever brand Brock Lesnar wants to show up on. I don't see Brock as a guy that you have to draft. First of all, because he may have failed the drug test with UFC and will be suspended for 2 years, which would include SummerSlam, and WWE has... I guess my thing is, even if that doesn't be the case, I don't think you can put him on this list, because you don't know what the hell's going on with Brock Lesnar right now. So let's segue right into that. Brock Lesnar has been informed that he failed, or he's a suspected failure of a drug test. The instant denial was, I believe, an asthma inhaler, which, as anyone with asthma inhalers knows, contain steroids. At the same time, I mean, anybody in this field knows that asthma inhalers contain steroids, and they wouldn't use them. Because especially someone like Brock, who apparently got tested 6 times in between announcing he was going to fight at UFC and fighting at UFC. The real fallout, of course, is that if this is true and Brock has failed the drug test in UFC, because in WWE they just suspend him for 30 days and he'd be fine for SummerSlam. But because it's a UFC and a USDA ADA drug test failure, which is enforced by the Athletic Commission in Vegas, where he fought, Brock, if he failed this test, will be suspended for 2 years. And here's the thing. He will not just be suspended from UFC, he will be suspended from pro wrestling. Because the Athletic Commission, despite the fact they can't act like that pro wrestling is a fake sport, the Athletic Commissions of states oversee pro wrestling. And if you've been suspended under the Athletic Commission rules in Vegas, it's not like a global or not a national rule because they are state-run organizations, but they do not. If you've been suspended by one state's athletic commission, you will not be able to wrestle under any state's athletic commission because they abide by each state's rules. So Brock Lesnar, if he has failed this drug test, will not be able to wrestle at SummerSlam. Or for 2 years. Assuming it's just one failure. Because John Jones failed for 2 substances and he is out for 4 years. But that's something else entirely. So my thing is first they got to find out if this drug test is, if the failure is legitimate, if he is suspended. And until then, they can't promote his SummerSlam match. They can't promote Randy Orton as his opponent. They can't promote that he's draftable as part of this draft on Tuesday. And why would anyone care? Brock Lesnar's not draftable. He's above being drafted. And why would you draft him anyway? He's not going to show up until SummerSlam. And then he's not going to show up until next year sometime. If he doesn't get suspended. That'd be a worst pick ever. Sure, you get Brock Lesnar 20 times a year. It's just one of I wouldn't draft Brock Lesnar in my top 10. Why? He's not going to listen to the rules. He's going to show up wherever he wants anyway. It's like drafting The Undertaker, who's not listed as an eligible superstar, by the way. You can't draft The Undertaker. He's going to do just one day on one of your shows, probably Raw, The Undertaker's gong is going to go off and he's going to show up. You don't bother drafting him because it doesn't matter. And maybe this will be updated. Maybe this was put up on a Sunday by someone who didn't have much editorial oversight and they just went through the roster of active superstars. And maybe it will be edited before Monday's show. I would bet money that after the events of this weekend that Brock Lesnar will not be drafted on Tuesday. Or he definitely shouldn't be. He will put an awful lie to WWE's official statement that Brock Lesnar does not currently work for WWE and will not appear for them until SummerSlam. Now, that went off on a tangent, but it was important. Brock Lesnar's failure is, of course, a big deal for WWE. Not that it would sell more tickets at SummerSlam, because let's face it, he's facing Randy Orton and nobody cares. But, 2 years is the length of Brock's remaining contract with WWE, and isn't that a coincidence? Also, Mark Hunt wants a cut of his money, which, sounds like something that this guy who I know nothing about would say, because all I know about him is from what I've seen through the Lesnar fight, and he seems like a gigantic tool. And of course, it will throw into question WWE's drug testing plan that Brock has been under contract with them for 5 years and has not failed a test. But on the other hand, he's a part-time performer and they don't test part-time performers. Which won't look good in public scrutiny anyway, but that's what they're going to say. Back to the draft for a second. Obviously, all the champions are eligible to be drafted. But somehow mysteriously, I bet they will end up on different brands, including the WWE champion. Who this is one thing that's coming up in my mock draft. And here's my thing: even though it's Dean Ambrose, don't you have to take the WWE champion first, or at least wait until the outcome of the Seth Rollins Dean Ambrose match, which means nothing on Monday, happens? And my reasoning behind this is, do you want to be the brand that has to introduce a new title belt? Well, of course not. So shouldn't Raw pick Dean Ambrose number one? Because or if it's Seth Rollins, I don't know when the match is. It happens on Raw. So you'll know who's champion on SmackDown. So shouldn't you pick whoever is champion as your number one pick? Because the guy who doesn't draft the champion ends up having to invent a world title. And the last time they had to invent a world title, they handed it to Triple H out of a briefcase, and we all know how much everybody liked that. Now, the other thing. I believe this all but guarantees that the Shield will end up with one guy on a different brand. The reasons for this are clear. There are 3 members of the Shield, or former members of the Shield, whatever. They're in a triple threat, and whoever drafts the first one, you're going to want to draft at least one of the other two, so you have a chance to end up with the world title after Sunday. I don't think there's any way that and the other thing, the obvious thing is they wouldn't have rushed this triple threat and insisted that it must happen despite Roman Reigns being suspended for 30 days if they thought that there was a chance that they could hold it off for SummerSlam. The fact that they're not tells me that one of those three guys is ending up on a separate brand from the other two. Which, by the way, is the only way it works. There is no third brand for him to go to. But my point is, after Raw, when you know who the champion is, you'd have to draft the champion. The other guy will draft a Shield member at some point. Maybe not the next pick, because then John Cena has to be your second pick, right? Because if you can't have the champion, you got to have the guy who can either be the champion or whoever beats him will be a credible champion. And then at some point, someone will take a second Shield member, and the other brand will say, "Wait a second. If they take all three Shield guys, we definitely don't have a world champion after Sunday." So they'll take the third Shield guy. It's the logic that makes sense to me. And I almost guarantee that whatever brand John Cena ends up with, AJ Styles will end up on as well. For the sheer simple fact of there's no way they're ending this feud with a six-man match involving Enzo and Cass and the club at Battleground. There's going to be a one-on-one John Cena AJ Styles match at SummerSlam, probably for the title that will be made up by the brand that doesn't end up with the champion. There's a lot of vague statements and suppositions in that. But anyway, that's my gut instinct at this point. The only things I can guarantee out of that draft is that John Cena and AJ Styles will probably end up on the same brand, and that one of the Shield members will not. And Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens will probably end up on different brands. Because again, why would you do that at Battleground and say it's a blow-off match if you were going to have any opportunity to do it again in the next, say, 6 months? Now, that leads to my one thing about the women's champion, where I said I hope they all end up on one brand, because obviously the women's title is not being defended at Battleground. It is Charlotte and Dana Brooke against Sasha and a mystery partner who would damn well better be Bayley. And if they're delaying it, you know they're delaying it so that Charlotte can face Sasha at SummerSlam. However, that means they have to end up on the same brand, right? Unless we're going to already break the rules the first pay-per-view, or second pay-per-view after the brand split. So if they end up on the same brand, who from this women's division headlines the other brand? Possibly you could do Bayley, but I'm saying, what does that women's division do? Yes, it's going to be Nikki Bella. If it's Nikki Bella, I'm going to turn off the pay-per-view, I swear to God. Also, Nikki Bella not available as a list of superstars who can be drafted. So, take that as you will. Sorry. That is what leads to my thing of it must be, not that it must be, but it feels like you have to have all the women on one brand, and probably on the show that has an extra hour. It's just a gut feeling on my behalf. I don't feel like you can, you're going to do Charlotte Sasha at SummerSlam because you have to do Charlotte Sasha at SummerSlam, right? Becky Lynch and Paige headline the other band. I guess, but when you've got the feud, the level of Charlotte and Sasha, can you really counter with Becky Lynch and Paige? Especially since they're going to have to invent a title after Battleground, after this draft, if they're going to split up the women's division. I'm not saying that's not what will happen. I'm just saying that the easiest solution is to put them all on one brand and have one women's division. It just doesn't make sense otherwise. They seem to be treating it like Becky Lynch and Natalya is an equivalent feud, but I won't be surprised if that match ends up on the pre-show, because it's a pre-show match, really. And also because Baron Corbin currently isn't scheduled for a match, so they got to put something on there. That's right, I burned Baron Corbin. I can do that. because he's far, far away from me. But that, yes, the big thing obviously is the draft and the Battleground right after. You want to talk about a useless episode of Raw? How about the one we're going to watch tomorrow night? Which, yes, will have Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins for the championship, which means nothing. Because if you think, really think about it, the only thing it means is who's going to be drafted as champion. Because beyond that, those two guys are still going into a championship match the very next week at Battleground. So it doesn't really matter who the champion is after Monday, other than for purposes of which one gets picked as champion. I think that it's literally just there because WWE has realized, holy shit, this Monday's Raw is completely lame duck because the pay-per-view is already set up and doesn't matter anyway because everything that's happening on it will be negated by the draft, and the draft is happening on SmackDown. Which, I'd do it on Raw, but I understand why they're doing it on SmackDown. It's the same reason why Shane McMahon is in charge of SmackDown. It's the same reason why, spoiler alert, although not really because it's not confirmed, that if this rumor is true, Dan O'Brien may end up as a SmackDown general manager. You know why you're putting all those guys on SmackDown? Because they're guys that people actually want to watch on SmackDown. So people will watch SmackDown because the entire brand split is happening because the SmackDown ratings are terrible. And USA is paying a crap load of money for SmackDown to be just as good as Raw. And they're holding WWE's feet to the fire, and this is the stupidest possible solution they could come up with. Rather than make SmackDown a good show, we have to turn it into a brand split so that it forces them to actually write stuff on SmackDown that happens that makes of any importance. And they have to make it a live show that spoilers don't get out there and that hurt the ratings otherwise. Do you know that SmackDown used to get higher ratings than Raw? Not higher ratings, higher viewership, because it was on a cable. Because Raw is on cable TV, and SmackDown, while it was the CW, but it was on network television. Technically, SmackDown was getting more viewers. Now the numbers were awfully close by the end because SmackDown was just a garbage pile, but yeah, and yet WWE will always treat it like the redheaded stepchild. That's why after Shane got to celebrate SmackDown because he gets to work 1 hour less a week, Vince made sure to say that the person who gets in charge of Raw, the flagship show of Monday night of WWE, is Stephanie McMahon. Because Raw is the flagship. They will get rid of SmackDown and eat the financial loss before they give up on Raw being the center of the universe. Now, I don't know who the GMs are actually going to be. I think Dan O'Brien's as good a choice as any for SmackDown. I don't care who's Raw because Raw is going to be led by the evil queen bitch Harpy who slaps people and gets away with it all the time. At least on SmackDown, there's a chance that Shane McMahon won't be all over every show. All I know is my job is getting twice as hard because I will have to watch Raw and SmackDown and probably talk about both for work. Which is fine, I guess. I don't know. We'll have to see how long they persist in believing that SmackDown is the same importance, but I'd like to be able to watch good wrestling 5 hours a week minimum, plus NXT, plus whatever else, plus the Cruiserweight Challenge, which we'll get to in a second. I don't trust their creative team to be that good. I know of the 5 hours of original main roster programming that I'm going to have to watch every week, I will be fast forwarding through a bit. Just to maintain sanity. And God help me if the Jays make the playoffs. Because baseball comes first. Not really, my job comes first. But it's a lot to think. It's a lot to ask the average wrestling fan to invest in, let alone somebody who actually follows the product closely. I don't know how this is supposed to help ratings when you're literally splitting a fan base and making them choose. And yes, obviously the reason there are GMs is because Shane won't be around, and Stephanie hopefully will not be around as much either. I'm really hoping for Corporate Kane as GM of Raw because, frankly, Corporate Kane is great. And it will keep him out of the ring. Those are two reasons that are good. I don't know. I'm hoping it'll all be good stuff, but I'm sitting here going, how is anybody in their right mind supposed to watch that much wrestling on a weekly basis? plus 20 pay-per-views a year. The big four plus 8 pay-per-views each single brand. That's 16 more pay-per-views. That's 20 pay-per-views a year. We're hitting UFC levels with that again. And we finally got it back down to 12-ish. I do not look for, because back when not right when I started at 411, but the brand split happened while I was at 411. Yeah, I guess it would have been going on for a while there. And they went up to like 20 odd pay-per-views at one point, and I did the pay-per-view roundtables. And I was doing one every other week. In the summer, when they had the scheduling was all weird, there was a pay-per-view every other week. And they can get away with it now because the network is $9.99, and it's, you're not beholden to the $60 pay-per-view price anymore. But I shudder to think what the quality of some of those shows is going to be like, especially initially when they're trying to figure out who are we pushing now. They throw a bunch of shit at the wall and hope some of it sticks. And I don't know how many of you remember the original single brand pay-per-views. Many of them were dire because the rosters just weren't big enough. They'd have jobber matches on pay-per-view because they needed to introduce new talent to fill out pay-per-views. I remember one in particular, I forget which one it was, but I know it was a SmackDown brand one, that had Hardcore Holly facing, I want to say it was Kenzo Suzuki, and Scotty 2 Hotty facing Mordecai or something of that level. And these were debut matches because they had to get matches on the pay-per-view, and they were terrible. Or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe it was Hardcore Holly versus Mordecai. I don't remember. That's the level of stuff we had. Stuff will work out. Some of it will work out, and eventually the brand split will end because the original one did. Maybe this time there'll be a payoff. But going into this thing, and we've only got rules 2 days before the draft, rules that I've already poked a bunch of holes in, and I'm just the average guy. We still don't know much about the draft. We can't figure out plans for anything beyond this week. It's impossible to predict a pay-per-view at this point. And Monday Night Raw is going to be 3 hours of, well, we're going to have a draft tomorrow, so none of this matters. I just don't know. I want it to be good. I'm really worried that it won't be. Sorry. I know I'm sounding depressing, and I don't want to. But there's a lot of things to sit here and go, wow, this is there's a lot of questions right now. Let's say that there's a lot of questions, and I don't know that we're getting any answers. Now, what was the other thing? I guess we could talk a bit about Raw. I wanted to address specifically the Wyatt family compound segment, which probably has been done to death at this point. I think if final deletion doesn't exist, it would be judged less harshly. But final deletion does exist, and it's pretty clear that they're trying to rip it off, except they did it in, of course, as I worried about, they did it in a WWE style, which meant there were 1 million camera cuts. There was that ridiculous, annoying Instagram filter over the entire damn thing. It's okay that there's film burn marks on stuff to show that it's found footage occasionally, but not through the entire thing. It didn't really resolve anything. It didn't make the Wyatts look particularly great. It didn't make the New Day look particularly good. It's just something that happened, and then it ended, and we assume everybody walked away. What was Xavier was actually worried about, because they seemed to hold their own. And then, it did go to black with a bunch of, fireflies and people in sheet masks. But am I the only one who noticed that there was nobody behind the New Day? Like, they literally could just turn around and go. Which is, I assume, what happened. Because Xavier Woods is still posting on Twitter. I don't know. like I said, I'd be more charitable if it wasn't a clear ripoff of Final Deletion. And by a clear ripoff, I mean, of course it was, because it's not necessarily a bad thing if they could do it better. But the problem is that the reason it was good, the reason Final Deletion was good was because it was two guys who have a history of being batshit crazy, doing something batshit crazy that was deliberately, hopefully, deliberately bad for a promotion that has nothing to lose. Meanwhile, WWE saw that and said, well, we can make that better. But you can't make stuff that's already bad and then deliberately make it bad. But still try to make it better and more polished and refined is what I'm saying. Because by doing that, you take away the cheesy element of it and it just becomes overproduced and just bad. I mean, the reason why Final Deletion has the charm and the so bad it's good stuff is you can tell that it's actually Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy's houses, and it's Matt Hardy's wife and kid and his father-in-law, and that they're out there with a camera and some props, and that's kind of cheesy, and it's actually, and also not 1900 camera cuts. And it's not good, but it's entertaining because how batshit crazy is it going to get? And with WWE, you know exactly what level we're going to hit. You're going to get a lot of confusing footage, and it's going to be taken far too seriously. And it's going to have, even though it's set up like a found footage film, it's going to have that WWE production values TM on it. And that's why it doesn't work. And plus, it's so out of the blue. If the Wyatt families have been doing this all along, maybe it would be more interesting. But this is the first time they've ever done something like this. And it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and you sit there going, well, that was a slickly produced segment meant to look like crap. The Final Deletion was guys trying to make something look acceptable, but it comes out looking like crap, which is kind of endearing because we're crazy. But the Wyatt family thing, it didn't work for me, and nothing happened. Was a match set up? I guess that's even the weirdest thing. If this was just to set up a tag title match at Battleground, it seems like kind of a come down from a video where it seemed, for all intents and purposes, like the Wyatt family were trying to kill the New Day with axes. There are easier ways to get a title shot and less dramatic. It just feels odd that we shot this crazy video where we tried to kill them 2 weeks ago, and now we're happy just taking their titles if we do that. It is kind of the eternal problem with Bray Wyatt's character. He doesn't convert anyone to his side. He never wins a battle because he's the evil force who shouldn't win a battle, but kind of needs to occasionally, so he still remains an evil force. And nothing ultimately that he can do will have a long-term effect because you're not going to let an evil spirit rule WWE, and why would it care about titles in the first place? Ultimately, every Bray Wyatt feud is building up to something that it can't possibly deliver. John Cena was never going to join the Wyatt family. Chris Jericho was never going to join the Wyatt family. The New Day was not going to be possessed by evil spirits at this compound. There's with all the hype that goes beyond the Wyatt family, until they actually deliver something, it's all it is hype setting up a disappointment. Because they promise all sorts of crazy things are going to happen with the Wyatt family, and then nothing ever does. Because they can't actually deliver that. I mean, who knows what Matt Hardy will do next week, but we know exactly what Bray Wyatt will do this week. I bet it will involve a promo where everybody's cell phones are on. And maybe the New Day will say booty. Anyway, that was just the one thing I wanted to touch on because, we're kind of still stuck in this holding pattern. We had to talk about the draft, but after that, there isn't a lot left to talk about because it's all changing on Tuesday. Cruiserweight Classic. We got to talk about the Cruiserweight Classic. Of course we do. I enjoyed it. I loved it. Kota Ibushi obviously is a great wrestler, and that you should, if there's anything of the 4 matches that happened in the premiere episode, you should track down the Ibushi match, which was the main event, and also the Cedric Alexander match because he should earn himself a contract out of this tournament. In fact, many of them should. I was entertained by all 4 matches. On the other hand, this is going to sound like a criticism, and it kind of is, but I feel, a valid one. If I weren't so into wrestling, and I get that this is on the network and this is for the people who are really, really into wrestling because it involves 32 guys, most of which are unknown. If I weren't really into pro wrestling, if I didn't vaguely know who most of these guys were, there's nothing in the Cruiserweight Championship for the casual fan. I have some, people I work with who do like wrestling, but have, they don't watch it to the extent I do. And even though there's guys who watch Raw every week and watch pay-per-views, they don't watch the Cruiserweight Classic I had someone come to me and say, I liked what I saw. It was good wrestling, but I don't care. Like, I don't know who these guys are. There's no storyline going on. It's good wrestling. But we've been taught that wrestling is more than just wrestling. Wrestling is story and pageantry and entertainment and characters. And while some of these Cruiserweight Classic guys obviously have it in spades, this is being set up as literally just practically a sporting event. It's a tournament. There's 32 guys. It gets treated, while they may wrestle as faces and heels during the match, it is the strictest competition. There are refs giving instructions before the match. Shake hands, come out fighting. Winner gets his hand raised at the end, and that's it. There's no storyline. Everybody just moves on. And they wrestle a straight one-on-one match. Winner, loser, move on. And that's fine. And I'm okay with it. I'm happy with it. I'm getting some good wrestling and some people who are definitely going to have WWE futures off the first week. Obviously, Ibushi and Cedric Alexander, but also the Frenchman, Clement Petiot, whose name got pronounced like 16 different ways. Seemed good. The guy from Chile seemed all right. Obviously, Grand Metalik seemed like a guy who could wrestle. I guess I basically listed almost everybody. They all seemed like guys who will probably fill out NXT now that they're going to take at least 6 more guys to the main roster. So it's a good show. If you're like me, and obviously if you're listening to me do a wrestling podcast, you're probably somebody who should watch the Cruiserweight Classic. It's very good. Obviously, the next episode is on Wednesday after NXT. I read the spoilers at one point, and I no longer remember any of them, so it's all new and good to me. I look forward to what happens, and I look forward to seeing who ends up with contracts out of it. But other than that, I can see a lot of reasons why people won't watch it, because it is completely different from what happens on Raw and SmackDown every week. All right, so that will finish us up for this week. Obviously, I have to tell you what video game I'm playing. It's Pokemon Go. I am on Team Blue, and if you're not, well, that's fine. I don't care. It's not like team matters for anything really important. It is now available in Canada, and that totally just happened today, even though I've been totally not playing it for like 3 days at this point. It's not a good game. I'm going to say it right now. It's not a good game yet. I mean, it might be. It's got things that could be good later, but I'm amazed at what I'm seeing from the social aspects of what's going on. Setting aside the stuff with people getting in car accidents because they're idiots, and people walking off cliffs, and people finding dead bodies because, well, frankly, that was going to happen. And the stuff like the news story that broke today where a Florida man, which should tell you all you need to know, shot at 2 guys in a car because he thought they were robbers, even though they weren't, and that's a whole thing that man should go to jail because even in his story he sounds like a criminal. It's the social things, the people getting together. I took my son to a park today, and by the way, if you want to know where Pokestops are, go to a park that has a petting zoo, because the park we have up here has not a petting zoo, but it has animals. It has like llamas and sheep and stuff. All of them Pokestops. And it's right next to a river, so water Pokemon everywhere. If you don't care about Pokemon, you have no idea. And it's not even about caring about the Pokemon. I never actually played a Pokemon game, because by the time it was popular, I was both broke and could not afford a Game Boy, and also way too old for it. Not in some sort of derogatory form, but I really just missed it. It's kind of like the Harry Potter thing. I didn't read Harry Potter until like 2 years ago. because when Harry Potter got really popular, I was not reading children's literature, which is what it is. I'm not being not being derogatory. That's what it was. I was reading university level stuff. I was not in university, but I was reading university level stuff. Not to brag. And so I missed the wave originally. I caught back up eventually, and that's what this Pokemon. It's not even about the Pokemon. It's about going out and getting exercise. And maybe I shouldn't have gone for a 5 kilometer walk yesterday because for some reason my hips have decided to eject from my body. But yeah, 5 kilometers when you know you're not in good shape already, probably not the best idea. But anyway, it's about, it's getting people to exercise, it's getting people to socialize, it's getting people out there. People, the major complaint about video games is that video games, you stay inside, you don't exercise, you sit yourself in front of the TV. And for all its faults, it's not a good game, although strangely fun, it's getting people out there. There are parts of this game that force you to exercise. And anybody, if you're in an area where there's a lot of Pokemon and Pokestops around, and you see people out on their cell phones, you know what they're doing, right? You can't put a stigma on that, because if everybody's doing it, how can that be not cool? Which is why I get upset with people on Facebook like, oh, Pokemon, you kids should just go back inside and get off my lawn and stop trying to catch Pokemon. And I'm like, everybody's having fun and socializing, and yeah, there's some idiots getting hurt, but that's not everybody. That's not the majority. That's 1 or 2 idiots. I understand. Listen, stay off of private property. Stay off the highway. Don't do anything stupid in the pursuit of a stupid phone game. But there's a lot good about this game, even if the game itself is kind of lacking. My entire office is playing it. And these are people, some of which don't play video games. There has to be some good there, right? And we're all walking at lunch instead of sitting at our desks eating lunch. Anyway, that's my Pokemon rant. Maybe I can catch a few more before bed. No, that would be crazy. Right? Anyway, just one other thing I wanted to address. It didn't seem like a good idea last week, although this is when I discovered it. And it really cheeses me off. And it's because it's the first time that this has happened to me. The day before I had to do the show last week, I discovered that there was a website who I'm not going to name because they don't deserve the publicity. And I would never discover this if someone hadn't posted it on my Facebook feed as a link from, I don't believe it was actually a former WWE wrestler's Facebook account, because I don't think it was verified or anything. But it was a link to an article about 10 WWE superstars 10 superstars who WWE should bring back. And the picture on it seemed awfully familiar. So I clicked on it, and I saw that it was my article that I'd written for Goliath about 10 WWE superstars who should make a comeback. And they'd used exactly the same pictures I had, so I knew that and kept it in the exact same order. And all they'd done was hack out most of the words so it looked different. And it pissed me off. And I'm not saying like there's stuff, there are wrestling sites that have used my slideshows, but they linked to our site and I get credited as an author. This one was someone had written it, someone had posted it under their name as if they had written it. I don't know what pissed me off more, that someone had stolen my work and that they had done it, that they had made it worse. Because it was literally like it was written by a 12-year-old. And the fact that that website was profiting off my work, and I get that there's all sorts of irony in me saying stuff given things that I may or may not have done electronically in the past. I don't know. I would be all for people linking to my work or sharing my work, as long as there's credit. But when I think I'm almost more pissed off that they made my work worse. And then there's nothing you can do, because I don't own the pictures. and the words are different. Not different enough that I didn't recognize parts of it, but they're different. It's very hard to prove. It's the internet. So, I mean, if you happen to be one of those people at that website, and I'm sure you know who you are because you clearly know who I am, I hate you. I don't hate you. I hate you. You took my work, you made it look like yours, and you made it worse. I hope you're happy with yourself. Anyway, show will be back next week, where we'll finally know stuff. We'll talk about Battleground. We'll talk about draft fallout. We'll talk about I don't know what, because who knows what the hell is going to happen this week. Of course, as always, you can follow us on Facebook at TWNE After Dark. You can follow me on Twitter at Dave the Camel. I do post occasionally. On the days I manage to watch Raw live, I do live blog Raw. Occasionally, or not live blog. I post on Twitter clever statements when there's something stupid happens on Raw. You can always get this podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and through Speaker.com and on ForumMania.com. I'm sure there's other ways, right? The Wrestling to the Max Podcast Network, which is actually the W2M Podcast Network website coming soon. Other than that, for now, we'll see you next week. Have a good one. Thanks to everyone for listening. Have a good one. Always be a fan.